Hey, Randy, Cheal here. Listen, I don't know what the Ali Act means. We know that you were out in D.C. Last Thursday in front of a Senate subcommittee. It looked great, by the way. I saw the pictures. I
kind of had to clean up for that one.
Yeah, man, but I don't know what the Ali Act is. Can you shed some light on it?
Absolutely. The Muhammad Ali Act is federal legislation that was enacted in 2000 to protect boxers from being taken advantage of by promoters in the sport of boxing. It does a couple of things. It separates the powers that control boxing, standardizes contracts across the board regardless of promotion, and basically ensures a free and open market for boxing, for negotiations, and levels the playing field basically with regards to power, which is why Floyd Mayweather could negotiate a $40 million contract in boxing where no one in MMA has ever come close to that. Here's the big issue and why we think the act needs to be amended to include mixed martial arts. We're using a flawed system in MMA, and this is a system that the Fertittas and Zuffa kind of enacted. They kind of inherited it, but they knew exactly what they were doing because obviously Lorenzo was part of the boxing commission before he was the owner of the UFC. But the sanctioning body and the promoter in mixed martial arts is the same person. They are creating their own rankings, and not just Zuffa, but every promotion in our sport creates their own rankings and their own titles. They manipulate those titles and rankings as they see fit for business, and that creates a conflict of interest and an unfair amount of power to the promoter. And Cheal, you've you've experienced that yourself. The contracts tend to be take it or leave it. If you don't want to sign it, we'll go to the next guy. Here's your, sign away your ancillary rights and all these other things in perpetuity, and this is what the pay is going to be, and take it or leave it. Again, in boxing, the sanctioning body, the bodies that control the rankings and the titles are independent. They are licensed by the athletic commissions, and they have to meet a minimum criteria. And then obviously, depending on how they do their job, they gain notoriety for that title. And across the board, regardless of promotion or promoter, the promoters then negotiate to make those top-ranked fights for those top-ranked belts happen. And that is a free and open market, not what we're using in mixed martial arts right now. Does that make sense?
It does make sense to me, Randy, but let me ask you a question. So for me as a fan, and I know you've been on this for a while, but what you were doing with the Ali Act had nothing to do with the one fight association that you were associated with, correct?
It has nothing to do with the fight association. And this is the difference between what the PFA or the MMA which is what George and the guys just came out with. They're focused solely on fighters that are under contract with the UFC and trying to unionize those fighters that are under contract with the UFC. That does nothing for the sport. That doesn't help any of the other fighters in the sport that are fighting for other organizations. But Cheal, you're fighting for Bellator now. So, if they unionize, which in my opinion, the union model does not work. We are independent contractors. We're not employees. But They're trying to get the UFC fighters to be recognized. And I say UFC fighters, that's fighters that are under contract with Zuffa and the UFC, to be recognized as a pool of employees. They want to then, if they get that recognition, they are going to create a collective bargaining agreement and try and collective bargain for better treatment and better contracts and better pay with Zuffa and the UFC. That does nothing for Bellator, World Series of Fighting, Rise, and anybody else who's operating in the sport. They'll still be operating under the same system. That's why I think our goal is focused on the Ali Act, which changes the sport across the board and helps all fighters regardless of promotion. We don't want promotions to go out of business. I don't want to hinder or make it difficult for any of them, including Zuffa, the UFC, to be in business. I just want my fair value and be able to see what my fair value is. It's another thing the Ali Act does. It creates some transparency. They have to disclose what was paid and made off of a particular event. So if I fought in a particular event, I can go back and look up those numbers, what what was made by the promotion, what they paid out to the fighters, and now I know what my fair value is the next time I want to fight or they want to negotiate with me to fight that next ranked guy or fight for the title. I'm not held to the fire to sign some, multi-year, multi-fight contract if I want to be ranked and if I want to fight for a title. It's a standard contract across the board that's developed by the Association of Boxing Commissions, which is in the process now of changing their name to include mixed martial arts and combative sports.
Now, Randy, if somebody is under exclusive contract with an organization, take me, for example, I'm with Bellator, would the Ali Act make that illegal for a promotion to have an exclusive contract with a fighter? So essentially I could go fight in the UFC or a brand new show or something? It would? Okay.
It would standardize contracts across the board, and it would make those exclusive contracts against the law. You could fight that. And this is interesting. What did Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz just do? They went out and they got boxing licenses. Why do you think they did that?
I don't know.
When you first registered as a professional mixed martial artist, Cheal, you got a federal ID number that identified you as a mixed martial artist. Boxers do the exact same thing. They get a federal ID number as a boxer. That federal ID number, now those guys are protected under the Muhammad Ali Act because they just got boxing ID numbers. Now, if they want to go box or do whatever they're going to do, whether it be Floyd Mayweather or whoever, and honestly, I don't think the California Athletic Commission would ever let Conor McGregor at this point box Floyd Mayweather right out of the box. It would be, it's possible, but it's a stretch. But the point is, those guys are now covered under the Muhammad Ali Act with those federal ID numbers as boxers. If they want to go box, you know as well as I do, their UFC contract that's exclusive to Zuffa and the UFC says you are precluded or prohibited from boxing, doing wrestling, doing submission wrestling, that whole list of stuff that's in that contract. It's listed there. Boxing is listed there. It says without their exclusive and express permission. That's not legal under the Ali Act, and they are now protected by the Ali Act.
So Randy,
it's becoming very interesting.
Well, that's fascinating.
Going on.
Randy, you actually just blew my mind on that. I did not understand that, and that does change things, and that would explain why he went out and got a license. I thought it was a PR move to take one step closer to Floyd. I thought it was as simple as that. Wow.
So Randy, who would pass the Ali Act? A, and B, if the Ali Act passed, is it passed in every state or as a state?
It's federal legislation. We're not changing any of the real language in the Ali Act. All we're doing is changing the definition. Right now, it simply says boxers. We want to expand that definition of who's protected from boxers to boxers and combative sports athletes. That's what we are. And basically, we would then fall under the federal protection that's garnered by the Muhammad Ali Act. And we just had that federal hearing with the Energy and Commerce Commission. It's a subcommittee. It was the last hearing of the 114th Congress. Obviously, on January 3rd, the 115th Congress for next year starts up. We will reintroduce the bill requesting the expansion of the Ali Act. It will have a new bill number going into the 115th Congress. And then, obviously, the first 100 days of the new Congress is going to be spent in transition with the new president and everything there. After that 100 days, we'll be back to doing more hearings, probably at least 2 more hearings. We have to go to the Senate floor, garner support with the senators, and then they'll vote on it. It'll go to vote, and they'll vote to amend the act, and it'll be put into place. There's a little bit of transition period after it gets amended and voted in, but basically once it's voted in, our sport is the playing field and our sport has changed forever.
Now, for a gambling man like me, what are the chances that actually happens, and what roads, what mountains? It seems like there's a lot of politics involved in this.
Well, here's the thing. We just had a great hearing. We have a bunch of sponsors and a bunch of supporters on both sides of the aisle, both Republican and Democratic. I think we had 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats at this stage for this Congress that supported it. I think since we left D.C., we've got at least one more Republican sponsor. A sponsor is somebody that's for it. It's going to help us push it through. We all know that Zuffa and the UFC has been spending money for close to a year with lobbyists trying to keep this from going to the floor, trying to keep it from happening. We still got the hearing. We still had a very positive response from all the congressmen that were represented in the hearing. I think it's a Republican Senate, a Republican Congress. We have a Republican president. The only real concern we have at this point is that Dana White spoke at the Republican National Convention on behalf of President Trump, or President-elect Trump, however you want to say it. So obviously we think at some point he will probably try to play that card and derail this whole expansion act. But with all the sponsor support and all the other stuff that we have, that will make President-elect Trump look pretty bad. So, I mean, all we can do is march on, tell our stories. We have 9 or 10 guys on the steering committee for the MMA-FA, the Fighters Association, that all have experiences dealing with the system that's flawed and the contracts and the coercive nature of those contracts in one or some form or another. 6 of us were out there stumping, basically, or knocking on doors and talking to congressmen and telling them our story and telling them why we think this should be amended to cover us as mixed martial artists and create a transparency and a free and open market for mixed martial artists to get their fair value, their fair share. And that went over very, very well. All we can do is continue to do that. Tell those stories, let the fighters know, educate the fighters on why and what we're trying to do and why this is important, and have them get behind us, help us, tell their stories, join MMA-FA. It's pretty simple to do. We're in the process of creating some structure for the FA as I speak. Not unlike the membership card for USA Wrestling, they provided some insurance coverage and some things like that. Not unlike what actors get when they get their SAG card. We're a very similar model to what SAG is to actors. There's tons of promotions out there, promoters or production companies, if you will, that want to make movies around the world, and actors from all over the place that when they get their SAG card, there's a certain minimum criteria that has to be met to qualify, both as the production company making the movie and the actor. Some of that includes, benefits, and then, it gets complicated at that point, but that's the structure we're looking to create and garner membership with the MMA-FA, all leading towards getting the Ollie Act amended to cover us all.